Well, it's the end of another month. I have a lovely cup of tea, which I'm going to spill about all the books I read in September. I am actually going to have my tea, bear with me. Did you think that was just a prop? No, I take my tea very seriously. So, here we are. I am going to keep this really simple. It's going to be a rundown of what I read, how I rated it, how I felt about it, and generally my feelings about the month overall. There are a few little different things this month than there are normally. I have one book that I've not rated at all, which we will discuss. And the order we're going to do this in is I will start with the lowest book, working my way up to the highest rated books. And just before we hit the 5 stars, we'll do a little check in on the DNFs of the month and what books I simply didn't finish and my reasons for that. So hopefully, again, that sounds good to you. Let us start the ball rolling with the first book of the month, which is an unrated book. Okay, so my unrated book this month was Sins of the Cities of the Plain by Jack Saul, which isn't a book I really read for enjoyment so much as kind of a reference. Basically, I read Hallie Rubenhold's The Covent Garden Ladies recently, and it mentioned this book a fair amount as a kind of resource. And it was mentioned enough and interesting enough that I wanted to check it out myself, and it's on the Gutenberg Library for free, so it didn't cost me anything to do so. But it's not really a book that you go, I am going to rate this as a work. It's a book that you go. So if you can hear banging, by the way, someone is slamming doors somewhere, either above or below me. But yeah, it's not a book that you rate as a on its own as a piece of literature. It's a book that you are very much informed by the circumstances that it was written in and its place in history. It's kind of like reading a certain very right-wing book by a very famous right-wing person who I won't say in case YouTube punishes me. But it's like reading that. You're not reading it to rate it as a work in itself. You're reading it for the context. Not that I have read it, actually, that book. You know which one I'm talking about. But yeah, no. So this was uncomfortable in places. It's basically an erotica novel written in the Georgian era, featuring a gay bisexual man, I guess, and his sexual escapades. And it is extremely graphic and often quite silly, ridiculously silly, but it has a lot of more uncomfortable things that, again, I won't discuss because this is not the sort of platform to discuss those things on. But there are things that as a modern reader you would find incredibly uncomfortable, but for Georgian times you would less so. And I think in and of itself it's a fundamentally silly bit of erotica. Like it's the level of watching a modern erotic video where the plumber comes round and all of the sexual things that happen as a result of that. It's silly. It wasn't meant to be taken particularly seriously at the time, but it is an interesting historical reference point for those sort of fantasies and literature. So yeah, wasn't really planning to start this this vlog by going on in talking about Georgian erotica, but here we are. So I haven't rated it because it's not the sort of book you give a rating to, but I found it really interesting in the context of those the historical reading I've been doing about the Georgian prostitution. So yeah, interesting, glad I read it, probably am not going to be returning to it. Okay, let's move on now to my actual rated reads. Okay, the first one and the lowest rated read of the month was one you were actually here for. If you watched my dog sitting video, I read this book for that video, so I'm not going to go too into detail about it. Please do go watch that, because I'm a brand new YouTuber and every single watch that I get means the world. And also, if you're watching now, a like, a subscribe, any comment at all, anything you've read this month, let me know in the comments. That would be amazing. Really would appreciate it. But yes, so I read it for that video where I was just getting rid of all the sort of pulpy books that were kind of taking up space on my shelf. And it's a simple thriller about people who committed crimes when they were very young, very bad crimes, and who, due to public outcry, once they have served their time, they're given new identities, and someone gives their victims their true identities, and chaos inevitably ensues. I didn't like it as a book. It was fine. It was readable for the first half, dull for the latter, and I think there are suggestions I would have made if I was an editor that would have made it a sharper, better book. And when you can see that in a book, it's frustrating not to have those changes. I just thought it was silly, and I didn't find the twist at the end particularly good. And I think there's probably books out there that do this concept better. So, yeah, not a winner. Also, the writing was very much, it was clearly made for a TV audience. Like, it felt like this was a script for a Sunday night drama and not a novel. You don't really feel that anyone had an inner world. So yeah, bit of a letdown, but it was a pulpy book that I got as the bonus book in the Abominable Book Box subscription. So I've lost nothing, and I didn't choose it. So it's not on me that it wasn't a winner. So the next book on the list is After Alice by Gregory McGuire, who is the author of the Wicked novels. And this is a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland, and basically what happened in the ordinary Edwardian world while Alice was down the hole, and what happened when one of her friends also fell down a hole as well after her. It was a book that had a very low rating on Storygraph and Goodreads. It's not a popular book, and so it sat on my bookshelf for absolutely ages, because I basically bought it in a charity shop for like no money at all, probably like 50p, and then I saw the rating it got on Goodreads and Storygraph, and I was like, oh wow, this could be bad. And because I'm not obsessed with Alice in Wonderland, I wasn't particularly motivated to read it. But I finally did read it this month, got through it, and I have to say, I liked the writing style. A lot of people didn't. It's very Victorian. It's a clear Victorian parody. It's very wordy. But once I got into the swing of it, I liked it, because I like wordy Victorian books. I found it that the most fun, reading and unpicking this very complex prose, almost like poetry. You're picking it apart to find what he really means. I enjoyed that, but it made it a somewhat exhausting read for a short book. And also, it was just depressing. Like, there was nothing to root for. There was no joy or anything to hope for. There was whimsy, but without the joy of that whimsy. And you finished it feeling worse about humanity, and worse, about the story of Alice in Wonderland, which I don't think is a great thing in a reimagining, to feel less positive about the story you're reimagining after reading it. I didn't hate it. I didn't curse the book afterwards. I actually still feel kind of fond about it, but I don't think it's a particularly it's not a particularly good book, and I imagine that author has better books because obviously they wrote Wicked, so I'm sure I haven't read those, so I'm sure they are far more to people's tastes. But yes, I didn't hate the experience, but I don't think that it's going to be a book for many people unless they're really into Victorian literature as a style. But yes, moving on. And this is another book you were with me for. This was a book I read for the very first video I made for this channel, which is a book on pirate novels, and I read 2 for that video. Please do check it out if you're interested in pirate works, because not only did I read 2 pirate books for the vlog, I also recommended 5 of the ones that have been most popular in my pirate book club, which is a book club I have with my friends. So by all means check that out. But for the moment, I'll say that this is a non-fiction historical book about women's and their relationship to piracy throughout both history and fiction. It's not the most amazing of non-fiction book, just simply because this is something where there wasn't enough material to write a non-fiction book on it. It's depressing that is true, but there are only a couple of actual historical pirate women, and everything else is all, implications or suggestion, but there's no facts for it, and that's a very hard thing to write a historical non-fiction about if you haven't got the material to base anything on. So yes, it ended up being far more of a look at women throughout history and how piracy may have impacted their lives or freed them in some way, but it was all very vague and often very padded. I think unless you are seriously into feminist pirate history, which you may very well be, there's not going to be a lot there for you, and I imagine if you are into that, you'll already know a lot of it going in anyway. So yeah, maybe not one I would hugely recommend, but I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it, I just didn't, I don't think I'm going to come away with a hugely I didn't come away with a lot from it, and I don't think I'm going to look back and remember it. So there we go. So then we have Tastes Like Candy by Ivy Tholen. This was a cheeky little horror slasher novel that I picked up from Kindle a long time ago, and it's been guilting me for several Halloweens. So I was really glad to get through this, get this off my list. And yeah, it was both better than I expected and worse, if that's somehow possible. I came away overall feeling more positive about it than negative. It did teenagerhood in a very real way, and that kind of sort of characters who do have all of these pressures and stresses and fears, while also kind of having all of the opportunity in the world and not being able to fully appreciate it because, they're not old enough to. And so it walked that balance very well, and the main character I felt very real, very, very teenage, but also very likeable because of that, because she had all of the foibles and nerves and selfishness of every teenager at that period of their life. And I liked it because I wasn't expecting a really characterful section in a slasher novel, essentially. And I think when it actually got to the slasher part of it, that was the most disappointing bit, because it wasn't done very well. The imagery was great, the concept was great, but I guessed who it was almost immediately, and I didn't find the motives particularly it was drama. It was very dramaful, and I was a little bit gagged, I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time I think it could have been done so much better, and it was very disjointed. The actual, when they're actually running around in fear for their lives, it started so quickly without any build up, and then kind of was very disjointed all the way through to the end. And I think if it just had the pacing worked on a little bit, it would have been a really solid 4-star, I think. But yeah, again, don't regret reading it. Gave it 3 stars, yes. And again, I would fully recommend it if you want a bit of light, fluffy slasher horror. But I think it's a little bit of fun. Okay, so moving on. And then this is going right back to the beginning of the month. I read Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay, which I'm a little bit fuzzy on because I did read it at the start of last month, and I've obviously read a lot of books since. This is basically a small county in America that's had a rabies outbreak that is causing animals to act with extreme violence, and then passing this rabies on to humans. And if you don't know much about rabies, which I didn't, because they've actually eradicated rabies in the UK. It's not something that is on the priority list with animals, and you fear animals for many reasons, but rabies, like if you get bit, you're probably not going to be particularly worried about rabies, though you probably would get it checked out. But yes, if you come from a country that does deal with rabies, you probably know far more about it than me. But basically, if you do get bit, unless you get treated, it is fatal, 100%. And once the infection reaches the brain, which it takes some time to do, but once it does, it is incurable, which is why you should always get checked out if you are bitten by an animal. But yeah, so this book takes that concept of a lockdown caused by these animals going rabid, and basically kind of turns it into a zombie story where people are being bitten and the rabies working far more quickly than it does in normal circumstances. Just a bit becoming fatal in just a matter of hours and causing a zombie-like infection. And I love a zombie novel. I love a zombie TV show. I have so much Walking Dead stuff you would not believe. Absolutely love it. So I was very here for a Paul Tremblay zombie novel, especially as I recently read Horror Movie by him and I found it very unsettling. So he's been an author that I've really started to enjoy. And this follows 2 women who, one of whom is pregnant and whose husband is attacked, and they are bitten at the start of the book, and she is nearing the end of her pregnancy and goes to her doctor friend for help. And it's basically a very short journey following them throughout the few hours before she succumbs to her infection. And I liked it. There were some really good characters, and I really liked that it was such a short time period. I think the actual time period of the novel is probably under 2 hours, from infection through to, what happens at the end. So it's all happening. It's so quick and pacey and shocking because you barely have time to breathe before the next thing is happening. And it did bring back a lot of Pando memories because they are in lockdown, and it was uncomfortable in a way, but at the same time I think it worked well, and it felt like a different sort of zombie novel than the ones I'm used to. One that's so simple that you almost can't believe it hasn't been done before. Like, it's one of those things that it makes it look so easy because it's just a concept that works. So yeah, I really liked it and gave it 4 stars, and I do want to read more from Paul Tremblay. I haven't read his sort of bigger, better known works yet, so I'm working towards those. So yeah, that was a good one. Let's move on. And then back to another book I read with you, which was Glitterballs by Michele Howarth, which I read again in the dog sitting video. Please do check that out. And I wasn't enthused about reading this because it was a book that was loaned to me by my boss, who I think knows the author. I don't know for sure. But basically he loaned it to me because I said that I like celebrity novels, which I do like celebrity novels. But I just wasn't hyped for it because it's that thing of someone loaning you a book that you didn't really ask to borrow, that kind of you go, oh, okay then. And I should have trusted him because actually I really liked it. It wasn't a mind-blowing novel, and I think if I read that kind of novel a lot, I would be probably less impressed by it. But because I don't read very much sort of contemporary drama / dark humour, because I don't read that, I liked it more for the novelty of it. And it was often a little bit brutal, and it wasn't afraid to go to dark and sometimes disgusting places. It's not horror in any way, just, to talk about the sort of disgusting realities of life sometimes. And all the characters in it, apart from the main character who is meant to be awful, I really found engaging, and I liked spending time with those characters. And it did things that I didn't quite expect. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think this is it's not got a lot of reviews at all. It's barely had any reads. It's a relatively new book. I think it only came out last year, but it's doesn't seem to be have been read by many people yet. So I say, as for a new author, if you are watching this and you are vaguely interested in a story about a down on their luck rock star who is making everyone in his life miserable, and how, by all means go and read it and give the author a chance and a review. Why not? Help them out. So yes, but that's a little underrated little book for you to maybe go and check out. And now I'm going extremely off-piste because I am reviewing a graphic novel. I don't read graphic novels. It's not that I hate them. I just really struggle. I struggle to actually physically read them. I find them quite disorientating, and it's harder work for me than reading an actual novel. And it's a shame because there's so many graphic novels that I want to read because the concepts sound great, and I'm always a little bit exhausted at reading them, and it's a shame. But I do sometimes persist. I also struggle because I tend to read digital books rather than physical, and reading graphic novels digitally without the I don't have a tablet or a bigger screen to read on. I only have my phone or my PC. So that just means that I'm not in a position to read digital graphic novels, and I don't tend to buy physical ones. So yeah, but this month I read some graphic novels of all things. I'm also reading one at the moment. I don't know what's going on with me. But yes, this is a Doctor Who graphic novel, which is Missy the Master Plan, which is by Jody Houser. And I got this in for someone who doesn't read graphic novels, I got it in a humble bundle where I paid a disturbing amount of money for a disturbing amount of Doctor Who graphic novels. I have so many now. I'm not even that obsessed with Doctor Who. Like, I love Doctor Who, but I'm not like... And I've read a lot of the spin-off novels, but I'm not like reading all of the graphic novels. I don't know what came over me. I just thought I could be that person for like 5 minutes, and then I lost my mind. And spent too much money. So I was like, I'm going to read one of these damn novels that I paid money for like 2 years ago and haven't read. And this is the one that I wanted the most because I'm a very simple girl. I love Missy from Doctor Who is one of the baddies slash kind of allies, but she's amazing. I love her. I have such a crush on her.
Stop making a fuss. It's too late. All the graves of planet Earth are about to give birth.
And I'm a simple girl. If Doctor Who puts out a bit of material that has Missy, I will pay for it and I will read it. Very simple girl, very simple rules. I don't make the rules, I just abide by them. I bought it and I read it. And I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It's the art was really good and the plot was simple but worked really well. And I just got to spend time with my girl Missy, and sometimes that's all I need. So yes, read it, loved it. Don't have a lot to say about it because it's like a 100-page graphic novel. So yes, had a good time. And then another book I read with you guys, which is The Novice's Tale by Anne Swinfen, which I read for the dog sitting video. And this is a very simple, it's a medieval murder mystery set in Oxford. And it's about a bookseller who solves various mysteries, and this is about a novice at the convent who has been sent there against her will and why she has been sent there. I liked it. It was quite a simple mystery. It wasn't a particularly, twisty, turny, dramatic story. But I just liked spending time with the characters. I liked the kind of cozy world that it evoked. It felt cozy mystery, which is what I really needed in that moment. And I enjoyed spending time with them. So if you want to hear more about that, check out the dog sitting video, and we will move on to the next book. To say, I gave this 4 stars. So yes. And now another graphic novel. What is going on with me? I don't know. This is Northanger by Rey Terciero, which is a retelling of Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. And this is set in a Texas ranch with a young Latino teen who is obsessed with horror movies and horror generally, who goes to this ranch which has secrets and gets the entire wrong end of the stick about what those secrets are, while also falling for the son of the family. And it's if you've read Jane Austen, if you read Northanger Abbey, you'll know kind of where it's going and how it's going there. But it dealt with some deep stuff, and it's young adult, so it did it gently but well. It had a lot to say about race and homophobia, and particularly homophobia in the South, and I just liked it. I thought it was really good, and I also got a little bit ooh, about the romance. It was really cute, and I was a bit swoony. So yes, if you like Northanger Abbey and want to read a twist on it, that's a really good shout. If you're just wanting to read a lovely young adult romance, then that also deals with some sort of harder, deeper themes, it's a really good shout. I fully recommend it, and I gave it 4.5 stars. The last book from the dog sitting video, which is Lockdown Abbey by Beth Cowan-Erskine. A book that I had put off so long. I bought this in a discount bookshop years ago, literally years, and have ignored it ever since. And for some reason, I built it up in my head as a book that I just couldn't read. It felt too big and too important, even though it's a discount book that I didn't care about when I bought it. I looked at it and went, oh, that sounds cool. And for some reason, it's become like my nemesis. And I was like, I'm going to read this book. And of course I did read it. And then I felt like an absolute idiot because I freaking loved it. It's just simple. It's a murder mystery in a manor house in the 20s, yes. and it's a Scottish family of absolute arseholes. They are all horrible people, but they're like enjoyably horrible. Like it felt like a murder mystery with, like, I don't know, like that kind of American reality TV like gag moments, and like where they're all being awful to each other, and you're just like, pass the popcorn, I am here for this. With like the servants who are actually interesting and nice, dealing with these absolute awful people. I kind of loved it, and what's more, no matter how awful they are, you really rooted for them. Like I really I didn't want terrible things to happen to them, because I was like, actually I kind of love how awful they are. So as you can tell from my smile, I really enjoyed this, and I have already purchased the sequel, which is Only Murders in the Abbey, which I think gives you a tone for like the kind of mystery this book is going for, which is a little bit parody, a little bit fun, but with a decent mystery. And I really recommend it if you're looking for a fun murder mystery, which I gave 4.5 stars. And I could have probably gone higher in terms of pure fun, but I couldn't, in good conscience, rate it 5 stars when it's not that technically good a book. But yes, I absolutely love it, and I will be reading and reporting back on Only Murders in the Abbey. And then on to My Dreadful Darling Thing by Johanna van Veen, who has a new book out, so that's what everyone's talking about at the moment, but I'm finally getting onto her old book. And I've been wanting to read this for so long, just based on the cover, because the cover is peak. I just freaking love the cover. And so I was excited to read it, and I was waiting for the as soon as I could get to as close to spooky season as possible to read it, which I have done. And I absolutely loved it. I talk about it a lot more detail in my booktube newbie tag video, which I'm just suggesting you check out all my videos. I only have 3 other ones. There's not a lot to check out, so if you feel like you like me and you're like, oh, I want to do a spree on her videos, like, you'll be done in like an hour and a half, so by all means go and check them out. But in that video, because I don't like the idea of doing a video but on a booktube channel that doesn't bring you book content in every video, even when I'm talking about just myself, which is what I was mainly doing in that video. So I threw in a cheeky little review for this book there, and also I think I broke the world record for the number of times I said cheeky in that video. It's like a British defence mechanism. When you're nervous and having to talk about yourself, you panic and say like the stupidest word about 20 times. So yeah, enjoy that if you are. I'm really selling it so well. But yes, I really enjoyed this novel. It's a story about a girl who does seances against her will. It's set in the 50s in the Netherlands, and she's been forced to do these seances, but she has one ghost who came to her as a child who is sort of pledged loyalty to her and will protect her from all the bad things in the world. And then this rich lady comes to the seance and is fascinated by her, and offers to pay for her to be her companion in her rich manor life. So this girl goes to the manor, and they begin to fall for each other, but there's all of these sort of dark forces to do with the rich lady's dead husband and the husband's sister, who is still causing issues at the house. It's very dark and gothic. It is also 100% a remix of Rebecca. It doesn't say it on there. Like, I literally googled this book and Rebecca, and like you get the author going, oh well, I was a little bit inspired by it, and I was like, baby, it's a remix. It's scene for scene in some parts, and I don't say that negatively, because I really enjoyed it in the way it did it. It didn't do it in a predictable way. Like like, yes, it was predictable in places when, you know, for example, there's a scene where the sister who is still, the sister-in-law who is still obsessed with her brother is like, oh, you should do this for the lady of the house. It will be such a surprise and she'll like love it so much. And you're like, that's literally what happens in Rebecca, that exact scene. I know how this is going to go. So it was predictable in that sense, but it brought it all together in its own way, and the story it told at the end was not at all like Rebecca, and it finished its own story, and I really enjoyed it for that. And it has all the sort of gothic, ghostly, creepy, eerie stuff you would want in a gothic novel, while at the same time having this sapphic yearning and sort of a little hint of romance and erotic thrill going through it. Just, yeah, absolutely loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I think if I'd been feeling really generous after finishing it, I could have gone to 5. I think I was mainly a little bit annoyed that the book was so hiding the fact it was Rebecca. Like, if it just said it's a Rebecca remix, boom, we would have had a 5-star, I think, right off the bat. But yeah, absolutely, if you're looking for a gothic novel this season, pick it up. You will not regret it. Though I would say I just say read Rebecca before or after it if you haven't read Rebecca, because it's an absolute masterpiece of a novel. Then we have another pirate novel, Running Close to the Wind by Alexandra Rowland. I won't talk in too much detail because I covered a lot of it in that first video. But yeah, it's a really fun romantic-y pirate novel. I read Alexandra Rowland's first book, and it was a surprise hit for me because I wasn't expecting to enjoy it. I'm not a romantic-y girly. I wish I was, but I'm not. And so I kind of bought it on sale, regretted it, and I was like, I'll read it. And then I loved it and gave it 5 stars. And what I really wanted was a sequel to that novel, but this isn't a sequel, though it's set in that world. And I found the tone of this so different to that first novel, and yet I really enjoyed it. I have a friend who also loved the first novel, didn't enjoy this one, but she said to me, oh, I think you'll enjoy it. And I think that's the case. It's a lot filthier. It's like 95% dirty jokes, and a character who is basically horny all the time and getting nothing, and I kind of love that for him. But it's diverse, and the relationship surprised me because it's not what I expected. The story was fun. It wasn't earth-shattering, but I generally enjoyed the romp. If you like Our Flag Means Death, and if you haven't watched Our Flag Means Death, you should watch Our Flag Means Death. But if you like that, that is what you're getting, but like 100 times hornier. That's exactly it. So yes, I really enjoyed it, gave it 5 stars, just on sheer vibes, on sheer fun. I finished that novel and enjoyed it to such an extent that I had to give it 5 stars. But yes, I'd also say if you're looking for pure like dramatic events happening after each other, this is not the book for you. I'd say this is if you want to just vibe and have a good time with a bunch of characters who you really like, who do the odd shenanigans and fun things. That's what you should do. That's what you should read it for. And also the final third, I think, was some of the funniest writing I think I've read, in terms of the big dramatic finale was something so absurd, so brilliantly done that I just howled. So yeah, if you're fun pirate shenanigans with a little bit of queer horniness, go for it. And then the last book, the final book. But first, before I tell you about my favourite book of the month, we have to talk about my DNFs. But you have to bear with me because I need to go check what they actually were.
A few moments later.
Okay, I'm back and I've checked and I DNF'd 2 books this month. One of which was one of the wildest DNFs I've had in a long time, so brace yourself for that. But the first one was This Spells Disaster by Tori and Martin, and I think it's a bit sad because this was an unusually early DNF for me. I think if I'd been in a slightly better mood at a better time, I could have maybe seen it further than I did. And I don't even remember very much about it, so that probably says how much I took in of it. But it's a kind of sapphic witchy fantasy novel. And I think it just didn't, the characters didn't click for me. You know, I was bored quite quickly by it. I didn't find the romance particularly engaging, and I probably only gave it 10% before I was just like, I don't feel this. And like, it's a shame because the what I wanted was to read the Payback's a Witch series, because I love that series, and I kind of still halfway through the one of the books in that series, but it's a winterish book, and I was like, oh, I really need to read this in winter. So was sort of waiting to read it for ages, and I think part of me was just like, I want to read that, I don't want to read this. So I'm not saying, sometimes my DNFs are not particularly deep, but I know when my gut says I'm not enjoying this and I don't want to be reading it. So I don't think this is a bad book. I think if a witchy sapphic romance sounds good to you, you've got every chance of enjoying it. Just this one just didn't do it for me in the moment. And I think if I was in the right mood, I could go back to it and maybe enjoy it. But yeah, this is not me slagging that book off. It's not me telling you that you shouldn't read it. But now we move on to one that I'm potentially saying you shouldn't read, though, you know, do what you want. It's your life. And so the DNF of all DNFs. This I was reading not for my pirate video, but for my pirate book club. We're kind of running low on pirate novels. There's not as many as you'd think, and when you've been doing a pirate book club for the better part of 2 years, you can start running out, especially good ones. So we gave this one a shot. It had good ratings, and you know, the concept seemed exciting. And look at the cover. Look at the pretty cover that I will put here. And I know what you're thinking when you see that cover. You're thinking, wow, that looks like a really cute young adult romantasy pirate novel. Why didn't you give it a fair shot? So it's not young adult romantasy. It is basically hardcore erotica with the most wild, dark romance. It's a kind of Beauty and the Beast remix. I if you don't like anyone or anything to do with Beauty and the Beast, like it just was, yeah, just we like I'm trying to put into words just how insane of a novel it is. But basically, it's one of those things where she is horny for the guy who is kidnapping her, almost as she's being kidnapped. And everything he does, no matter how awful or disgusting, only makes him hotter to her for some reason. Yeah, and it's like the world building is really strange. She has like magic psychic powers that the author seems to keep forgetting about after every few minutes. You know, characters disappear and then come back completely different, you know, with motivations that you don't understand. The sex is... I'm not a prude. I'm not. I read a lot of erotica. I started this whole video by saying I read some Georgian erotica that was very silly and a bit weird. I'm not afraid of a bit of erotica. This is kind of the sort of erotica that made me go, ooh, no, girl, what are you doing? It just, yeah, there's stuff involving, like, kind of Saltburn-esque stuff in a bathtub you don't want to know. And it's not even that the acts are particularly gross, it's just everything about the situation is gross. And so this book, we, as a united front, as the book club, were like, I don't think I can actually finish this novel. And so for the first time in our book club history, we were like, let's all just agree to DNF and we will get together and just slag off the bits we've read. And one brave person had been organised and actually finished it, because we all left it fairly late because we were all hating it. And so she gave a vibes-based breakdown of what actually happened in the end, so we'd all be able to talk about what, where it went. But yes, yeah, I'm not here to slag the author off. I'm not here to say you shouldn't read it, or I'm not saying that this book might not be for you. If you like some Beauty and the Beast erotica on a pirate ship, maybe there's something there for you. I also think that if I'd known it would be that going in, I would have set my expectations accordingly. But the whole cover, the whole description, everything about it says, young adult light fantasy. It gave Tress of the Emerald Sea vibes, in terms of content, not in terms of, quality perhaps, but, that was the kind of where I went in, the mindset I went in with, and then to suddenly go from that to, like, just extreme horniness within the first 5 minutes was not what I was expecting. But if you go into it expecting that, wanting to read that, it could be for you. It really could. But yes, don't take my word for it. If it sounds good, read it. But if it doesn't sound good, enjoy me hating it. Okay. And then we move on to the actual good stuff. My favourite book of this month, which is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher has come back into the fold because I have had some issues with T. Kingfisher. That's not a popular thing to say on BookTube. But yeah, my history is that I picked up the first in the Paladin series, the Paladin's Grace. I got that from my library really randomly. There was no hype. It wasn't a known author at the time. She was probably known, but in the BookTube space, I'd never heard of T. Kingfisher, and I'd never heard anyone in my book community talking about T. Kingfisher. This was an unknown author to me when I picked it up, which was quite a while ago. And so I read it, and because I went in with no expectations, I had such a good time. It blew my mind. It was an unexpectedly great novel that I just happened to read by chance, and they always feel like finding treasure. And I was like, yeah, I want to read everything by T. Kingfisher. And I read the next in the Paladin series, really enjoyed it, had a good time. And then I was like, well, T. Kingfisher writes horror. And they were starting to get hyped, and people were starting to talk about that horror. And I was like, well, this is great. I love horror. And I read the horror, and I didn't like it. It didn't work for me. For the tone that she has in her romance novels doesn't change. It's also there in the horror, and it's just inappropriate in the horror. It just feels so bantery, and it's like someone who's, it's someone who's trying to match the vibe of Buffy, but in circumstances that aren't Buffy, so it doesn't work. And I really struggled, and I felt very let down because I really wanted to enjoy it, and I was looking forward to them. And I still may give some of her other horrors a go, but the two that I tried I didn't enjoy. And I DNF'd. So I thought, well, maybe I'm just into her romance. And I enjoyed Sword Heart, which the the audiobook for Sword Art is hands down the worst audiobook I've ever listened to. And I say that as someone professionally connected to the audiobook world. It's terrible. The worst thing I've ever heard. I don't know what was going on. So that left a really negative impression in my head, even though I enjoyed the book. And then all of her other audiobooks are equally terrible. I don't know what. The horror ones may be better, but all of the romance ones are just dreadful. I don't know what is going on. I want to get involved and fix this myself. I do not have the power to do that. I do not have the power, and it's nothing to do with the readers and people involved with those books, and nothing to do with my part of the audiobook world. So I have no power. But yeah, so it's like, oh, I want to read a T. Kingfisher, and then it's like, but I can only read the romance, and I like listening to audiobooks, and I can't listen to any of the audiobooks, so then I just stalled on reading T. Kingfisher altogether. And so I was a little bit wary. I had this book on my shelf. Nettle and Bone had been on my shelf for about 2 years, and the T. Kingfisher of it all kind of stalled, and I just wasn't excited to read it. Equally, also, 2 of my friends gave it 5 stars, and recently I've kind of got a reputation where they both, I think that I rate, that we're very different readers, and that I'm a very harsh reviewer, and that I'm always being negative about books that the 2 of them really enjoy. And I'm not. We actually have a lot in common, and I often give very similar ratings. But I'm feeling a little bit like, oh God, I don't want to read another book that they've both enjoyed and be like, oh, I didn't like it, and feel like there's something wrong with me, which there wouldn't be something wrong with me. People have different tastes, and the areas where our reading crosses over may just be slightly different. But I was, in short, not entirely looking forward to reading this, and I pushed myself to read it because I do some challenges, which I will discuss more in the new year, when that's the time to be talking about yearly plans and challenges. But basically, for the challenges I do that allow me to buy more books as a reward, this book was basically an easy win that would get me, an easy free book purchase. Because I've set very firm limits on what I can buy in a year. So it's like, reading this would be a win, and so I picked it up and read it, and I had to eat my words because it is freaking amazing. It is such a good book. It's everything I wanted, both from horror from T. Kingfisher and their fantasy. It merged both really well, and the tone, the sort of comedy tone, was still there in places, but it was in appropriate places, and where it wasn't appropriate, it wasn't there. But the stakes were really high, the characters were really interesting and fun to be around, the group was really solid, the fantasy was well done, the world building was really interesting, and yeah, in general, I just thought it was a modern fairy tale that felt fresh and new while also very familiar. I genuinely loved it and gave it 5 stars, and I would recommend it to just about anyone. So T. Kingfisher has won me back. I will finish the Paladin series, which I was always going to do, but I kind of stalled. I will finish it. I may give their horror another try, but yeah, thank God, me and T. Kingfisher are tight again. I can feel less guilty about following her on social media while having issues with the books I've read. So yes, all in all, this has been a really successful reading month for me. I read a lot. I read really well. I enjoyed what I read. And most of all, I really enjoyed starting this BookTube channel this month. I've been going through a hard time. I've been dealing with exhaustion, which I've talked about a little, and I will talk about more in the next video. but I making the time to do this and to start, you know, the very first steps, however small, has been wonderful. I know I'm a newbie. I know that it's very hard to trust a brand new booktuber because you don't know how reliable they're going to be. You don't know if you're going to like their content. You don't know if you're going to agree with their readings, opinions, all of that. And I also know that, you know, technically I'm still very new as well. This isn't the greatest camera setup, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm new. But I would say if you liked it, if you've got this far, just please give me a go, give me a little subscribe, give me a like, a comment, anything. I would so appreciate it to help me get going, get the algorithm to love me. And I really just want to talk to people. So if you're seeing this, please comment with the last book you read, and I will love to reply and tell you if I've read it and if I have, what my feelings are, and if I've not, whether, you know, maybe I'll get a cool book rec out of it. But please do, and it would help me out so much. It would be so appreciated. But if you don't want to do all that, that's fine too. I have to build trust. You have to get to know me and decide whether you find me authentic and interesting. I get it. So if you are just watching and you don't want to do all that, then I thank you anyway, and I really, really appreciate it. So I will see you next month with more of my overall reading, and in between that, then and now, there are a couple of interesting, fun videos and challenges that are going to go up. So yes, I will give some hints. One is I am using books to motivate / scare myself to write an essay that I needed to write. So enjoy that madness. And then I'm also going to do a little Addams Family challenge. So for the spooky season. So if that sounds cool, give me a subscribe, and you'll see that when it comes up. But yes, thank you. See you on the other side, and we will hopefully read some good things this month.